PrimeTime continues. Now from Washington, Sam Donaldson.
The town of Lawrence, South Carolina is in the heart of the Old South, named for a wealthy 19th century slave trader. In Lawrence, some people still live in the shadow of its past. They still talk about the lynchings years ago of blacks. The Klan still meets. Tonight, Jay Shadler brings us the story of two men, natural enemies, who have come together in an unusual bonding that challenges Lauren's legacy of hate. This is a story of venom versus virtue.
I grew up hating Mexican, black, Puerto Rican, Chinese, Japanese, Honduran, you name it, I didn't like it. If they wasn't white, I didn't care for them.
I love you regardless of how you feel about me and regardless of what you're planning to do to me. I might not like you, but I love you.
Reverend David Kennedy,
The doors of the church are open.
activist and preacher at the New Beginnings Baptist Church. And Michael Burden, former Grand Dragon of the Ku Klux Klan. They are the oddest of odd couples. And yet, as improbable as it seems, they're now traveling together on a curious road toward redemption.
Sometimes we see the Klan moving, and we see the skinheads and the neo-Nazi groups moving all throughout America, and we get discouraged. I'll bear witness in my spirit. There's hope.
Their tale begins just off the town square in tiny Lawrence, South Carolina. Here in this abandoned theater, Michael Burden and another Klansman named John Howard opened the Redneck Shop, a store specializing in racist trinkets and Klan memorabilia.
I put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in that shop. Everything you see at the front of it back then was my work. I done that.
So you sold paraphernalia. Did you recruit for the KKK?
Man, I done more in that shop in the first 2 weeks than I done in a year. I signed up 22 people in one day.
Coming from a broken home, Burden made the Klan his family and its rituals a way of life.
I was trained since I was 17 years old, nothing but Klan. I've wrapped the cross, I've lit the cross, I've led the ceremony to start the cross, I've moved the cross, I've tore the cross down.
So when he helped open the Redneck Shop last year, it seemed the natural culmination of a career in hatred. But the store's spirit runs like poison in the soul of Reverend Kennedy.
World's famous Klan museum.
Right.
I can't even imagine what you think when you see that.
It's another reminder of hate and the crimes inflicted upon our people.
Inside, there's a wealth of souvenirs, but no welcome.
Would you please leave that camera outside, please?
Why, you don't want us inside? Why?
No, not with the camera. No.
Are you ashamed?
No.
Are you ashamed of something
No,
in
I'm
here?
not. But I'll get him out of here or I'll call the law. You don't believe me?
You'll call the what?
I'll call the law. You heard what I said. Now mean it.
No, I'm not.
Get out. Now.
Later, we returned with hidden cameras, recording a trove of Klan mementos, hooded robes, and racist literature, photos, and posters, knives with Klan inscriptions, and T-shirts with bigoted messages, one showing a white boy urinating on a black boy.
It brings back those memories of the rioting of the Klan and the lynchings, the murdering, the church bombing, the killings of innocent children. But in the midst of it all, Jesus Christ said, love your enemies. Pray for those who despitefully use you. But when it's a time to fight, we will fight. But Jesus said, rebuke evil. And the Redneck Shop is evil in the name of God.
For Reverend Kennedy, shutting down the Redneck Shop is both a religious mission and a personal crusade. In 1913, Reverend Kennedy's great-great-uncle was lynched on this road.
This is how everybody in this community came to town.
A mob of 1,000 whites strung Richard Puckett under a train trestle and then riddled him with bullets. It's said the rope was still hanging under the bridge well into the 1980s.
I believe if I was living in that time, I would probably be I would have been a dead black boy or a dead black man. I pledged God a long time ago. I was not going to die nobody's nigger.
Everybody got to pump it up.
Using only words as weapons, the Reverend opened a verbal assault on the redneck shop last spring. Violence was simmering. Klansman John Howard's son was charged with assaulting demonstrators outside the shop, and a protester smashed his van into the storefront. Then, amidst the chaos, something happened to Michael Burden.
You know what?
The man standing behind walls of hate fell in love with a single mom who had a singular dislike for the Klan.
I can't see me hating someone just because of the color of their skin.
She changed me. She's the one that started chipping at that little bitty hole that was in that wall. And eventually that little bitty hole got bigger, and it got bigger, and it got bigger.
You love him.
I see the other side of Mike that no one else sees, behind closed doors. He's a different person.
In fact, in a series of love letters, Burden poured out his struggle to change himself. "The feelings that are with me scare the hell out of me," he wrote. "I'm supposed to be as strong as a rock, and the rock is crumbling."
I promised Judy, as my wedding gift to her, I would not be in the Klan. And I turned in my resignation May the 2nd, 1996. I resigned from the Klan.
That decision infuriated the KKK and John Howard, Burden's partner and fellow Klansman. The couple was evicted from their home above the redneck shop and their belongings tossed in a shed. Having rejected the Klan as his family, Burden was homeless and hungry. At the town square, the redneck reached out for the Reverend.
And he said, I'm hungry. And that made me stop.
He said, well, instead of us bickering and squabbling, we'll talk about our differences later. Have them children or your wife eaten yet? And I said, no, sir.
You knew at that time that he was with the redneck shop.
Yes.
Did you pause a second? Did you think a second about that?
No, not 1 second. When a person is in need, you don't hesitate.
So the Reverend bought the Burdens dinner at a local steakhouse and then found them a place to stay.
He put us up in the motel that week, which I think the motel was like $112 for a week for 4 people. And it went from there. We built a friendship from there.
You got back in the car together. What did Michael say to you? Anything, do you remember?
He couldn't believe that Reverend Kennedy would do such goodness.
If some of the Reverend's flock worried their pastor had turned his cheek a little too far this time, they overcame their doubts. Last May, Burden formally apologized to the whole congregation and became the first former Klansman to be a member of the New Beginnings Baptist Church.
That was an experience that I'll never forget. When I hit that Black Baptist church, it blew me out the door. When they start singing, that whole church sings. Except for me, I got a voice about like a frog.
Burden's apology and conversion has twisted some of the old logic out of this town. Suddenly, enemies are friends and friends enemies.
I don't like saying it, really. They call me a nigger lover. My own daddy told me that. I called my daddy and asked him if he could give me a little helping hand with something. And he told me, go back to my nigger friend.
Of course, no one seems more disgusted with Michael Burden
Get out of my yard. The law's over their way.
than his old Klan buddy and redneck partner, John Howard.
I've never had no intention of talking to any media. Go over and talk with that thing you call a minister. That's the one that's talked to the media. That's the one that wants to shut down the redneck shop. Well, let me tell you something. The redneck shop shut down. You and him or nobody else will shut that shop down.
In sworn statements filed with South Carolina law enforcement officials, Burden says Howard wished Reverend Kennedy was dead and urged Burden to assassinate the minister.
I knew what he was talking about, but he didn't have to say it out loud. In other words, go ahead and get it done.
It was always that,
It was in
that
there.
Kennedy guy, he's a pain in my royal behind. I can't take no more of him. He's getting on my nerves. Something's got to be done. Do you hear me, boy? Stuff like I've heard him say that.
Our attempts to get Mr. Howard's response to all of this were met with a barrage of stones and words.
If I was a lawbreaker, I'd done killed you right here for violating my rights. I done told you to leave me alone.
Some folks still doubt the truth of Michael Burden's conversion, but his traveling companion on the road to redemption refuses to be one of them.
There is no condition for you loving someone. You love in spite of everything. It's unconditional. My dream is that Mike and Judy will have a very prosperous life. I think they deserve it. I think they need it.
Some men set crosses burning in the night. The Reverend has filled the darkness with a different kind of light.
I throw in hatred and I replace it with love. Kumba, 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 vista. Kumba, 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 vista. Ay, 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 la vista. Ay, 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 la vista. Kumba, 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 vista. Kumba, 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 vista. Ay, 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 la vista. Ay, ay, ay.
There's a final irony to this story. The Reverend Kennedy's church actually owns the building that houses the redneck shop, but for legal reasons can't shut it down. He and Michael Burden are now united in finding a way to do just that.